You sit in the crowd, watching another friend stand at the altar, hand in hand with someone they swear to love forever. The music swells, the guests smile, and somewhere in the middle of that perfect scene, a dark thought slips quietly into your mind. You've heard these promises before. You've seen how the story ends. Maybe not every time, but often enough to know the pattern. The laughter fades, the spark dies, and the same two people who once couldn't live without each other end up fighting like strangers. You've seen the statistics. You've heard the stories. You've watched the wreckage left behind, friends who lost their homes, their savings, even their sense of purpose. And maybe, if you're honest, you've lived through it yourself. The papers, the lawyers, the endless arguments, the slow realization that what was once love has turned into something unrecognizable. You remember how it felt to give everything, your trust, your energy, your money, only to be left rebuilding from the ashes. And if you've been through that, then you know something most people would rather not think about. You understand why more and more men are quietly stepping away from relationships altogether. It's not because they can't find someone. It's not because they hate women. It's because they've seen too much. They've learned a truth that's as uncomfortable as it is undeniable, a truth that doesn't fit the fairy tale we've all been told. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who spent his life dissecting the deepest layers of the human mind, would have recognized this shift immediately. He wasn't a cynic, though many mistook him for one. He was a man obsessed with freedom, spiritual, emotional, intellectual. He wanted to understand what chains people, what makes them surrender their strength and individuality for comfort or illusion. Nietzsche had opportunities for marriage. He fell in love. He was admired. But he made a choice most men wouldn't. He chose solitude over compromise. Not because he was incapable of love, but because he valued clarity more than comfort. He once said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," but he also understood something much darker. Sometimes what doesn't kill you can still trap you. It can drain your will, your energy, your sense of who you are, until you're a ghost of the man you were meant to be. That's how Nietzsche saw marriage in his time, and what he saw then echoes even louder today. He understood that relationships often function as silent transactions, men trading their freedom, their money, and often their purpose in exchange for things that can be found elsewhere: companionship, intimacy, emotional connection. These things are valuable, yes, but none of them require a legal contract or a lifetime of obligation. What men give up in that exchange, however, is irreplaceable: their sovereignty, their ability to live fully on their own terms. Once you surrender that, it's almost impossible to reclaim. And this is where the modern story begins, with a truth so raw that most people refuse to say it out loud. Relationships today can be financial and emotional suicide for men. One man said it best when he wrote, after being married twice and losing everything both times, "I know staying single is the best thing to do." That statement isn't born out of bitterness, it's born out of experience. The numbers tell the same story. Around half of all marriages end in divorce, and when that happens, men lose on average 77% of their wealth. 77%. Imagine working your entire life, building your savings, your home, your sense of stability, only to watch it vanish because of a system that doesn't protect you. Add to that the years of alimony or child support, sometimes extending far beyond the end of love, and you begin to understand why so many men are quietly choosing freedom over risk. For these men, staying single isn't a rejection of love, it's an act of self-preservation. It's a choice to keep their peace, their purpose, and their autonomy intact. Nietzsche would have seen this not as weakness, but as awakening. Because the truth is, most people aren't afraid of being alone, they're afraid of facing what solitude reveals. Yet Nietzsche believed that only through solitude can a man truly find himself. So when you see a man who refuses to settle, who walks away from relationships that feel more like traps than connections, you're not seeing someone who gave up. You're seeing someone who finally understands the cost of illusion. Someone who has learned that freedom isn't found in being chosen, it's found in choosing yourself. You sit there at another wedding, watching another couple promise forever, and a thought creeps into your mind that you can't quite push away. The flowers, the music, the smiles, all of it looks perfect, but you've seen what happens after the honeymoon fades. You've seen friends lose everything in divorce, watched them struggle to rebuild what took years to earn. You've seen men give up their freedom, their money, their peace of mind, all for something that rarely resembles what they were promised. And maybe you've lived through it yourself. Maybe that's why you can't hear those words, "till death do us part," without feeling a quiet chill. Because you know the truth. The numbers don't lie. Child support payments often go far beyond what it actually costs to raise a child. Legal fees alone can destroy years of savings in a matter of months. And that's if the marriage ends. The darker truth, the one few dare to say aloud, is that even the marriages that last can be financially devastating. It begins long before the wedding itself. You're expected to buy the engagement ring. One path leads to freedom, the other leads to quiet exhaustion. Nietzsche warned that most people surrender their strength in exchange for comfort, mistaking dependency for love. He saw how easily humans trade their will for a sense of belonging, and he believed that true power only begins when a person learns to stand alone. This is where things get uncomfortable. Because the truth that's emerging now is one society doesn't want to face. Many men today aren't avoiding relationships because they're bitter or broken, they're avoiding them because they've finally understood the deal. They're asked to give everything and expected to ask for nothing. They're told to be strong but gentle, ambitious but available, independent but endlessly accommodating. You're expected to pay for every date while she preaches equality. You're told to open up emotionally while she remains unpredictable and easily offended. You're expected to support her career ambitions, but when life requires sacrifice, it's always yours. You're told to be stable and reliable, but also exciting and spontaneous. The expectations never end, and none of them fit together. They're not meant to. Because when you're always chasing an impossible standard, you're easier to control. One man summed it up with dark humor: the best part about being single, besides not dealing with her, is not dealing with her family. It's funny, but it's also true. The relief of solitude isn't just about escaping one person's moods or needs, it's about escaping an entire web of obligations that slowly grows around you. In-laws, social events, birthdays, dinners, family trips, each one a small withdrawal from your time and your peace. You don't even notice how much of your life stops belonging to you until it's already gone. And then there's modern dating, the digital marketplace where human connection has turned into an algorithm. When a woman can access hundreds of men with a single swipe, what incentive does she have to stay and work through anything difficult? When attention is infinite, commitment becomes obsolete. Why reflect, grow, or compromise when there's always someone new waiting online? The result is a generation of people who see relationships as temporary and partners as replaceable. Men become resources, providers of entertainment, validation, money, or emotional labor, but not individuals worth investing in. Nietzsche predicted this kind of world long ago. He believed that when old values crumble, like marriage, religion, duty, new forms of manipulation rise in their place. The most dangerous form, he said, is the one that makes you believe you're failing at a game that was designed for you to lose. And that's exactly what modern relationships have become for many men, a game with no victory condition. No matter how hard you try, it's never enough. So, some men simply stop playing. They walk away from the entire system. One man said, 5 years ago, after my last relationship, I chose myself. I've been living alone for over 15 years. No kids, no girlfriend, no regrets. Nothing compares to solitude. Those words aren't bitter, they're free. When was the last time you heard someone in a relationship say, "Nothing compares to partnership"? You don't, because most relationships today have become sources of constant stress, not peace. They demand endless emotional labor, managing moods, walking on eggshells, negotiating over trivial things that never get resolved. There are the relationship talks, the social obligations, the compromises over where to live, what to eat, what show to watch, how to spend money. It's not love that drains you, it's the constant negotiation of self. That's why so many men quietly admit the same thing: I love being single. It's peace of mind. Because solitude isn't loneliness. It's clarity. It's the silence where your real thoughts return. It's the space where you stop performing and start existing. When you no longer have to compromise every part of yourself just to keep someone else happy, life stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like freedom. There's a moment that sneaks up on a man, a quiet, almost invisible. It happens after years of compromise, small arguments, and endless negotiations about everything that was once simple. He wakes up one morning and realizes his life no longer feels like his own. Every decision, every plan, even his mood seems to depend on someone else's reactions. And that's when the question hits him: when did freedom become a luxury? Nietzsche had a word for the kind of peace that comes from owning your life completely, amor fati, the love of one's fate. But here's the problem: you can't love a fate that doesn't belong to you. When every choice you make requires emotional approval from someone whose feelings shift like weather, you're not living freely. You're living under quiet control. The single man wakes up and wonders, what do I want to build today? He feels the rhythm of his own thoughts, the direction of his own ambitions. But the married man? He wakes up and thinks, what crisis do I have to handle today? He moves through a maze of expectations, trying to keep peace, manage emotions, fix problems that aren't even his. After years of living like that, something inside him starts to break down. The companionship he once thought would give him peace begins to feel like a contract that trades his energy, focus, and joy for a temporary illusion of stability. He realizes that every ounce of peace he gives away takes him further from the man he once wanted to become. One divorced man put it simply: the longer I'm single and free, the more I see how beautiful life really is. I finally get to be myself again. That word, free, carries weight. Because that's what most men don't realize until it's gone. Relationships don't just cost money. They cost identity. When a man is single, he rediscovers who he is. He makes choices without compromise. He finds his rhythm again. He learns to trust his instincts. But in a relationship, especially a modern one, his life becomes a series of negotiations. What music to play? Which friends to keep? How much time to spend on his hobbies, on his dreams, on himself? At first, these seem like small sacrifices. But over time, they chip away at him. His authentic self is edited, softened, adjusted, until one day he looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize the man staring back. His eyes look tired. His laughter sounds rehearsed. His dreams, the ones that once burned bright, have been slowly traded for peace treaties. Nietzsche called this the death of the individual. He saw it as one of the greatest tragedies of human life, the slow erasure of one's true nature in exchange for comfort and belonging. And what's worse? Society applauds it. They call it maturity, compromise, growing together. But what they're really praising is domestication, the process of turning a wild, creative, self-determined soul into something manageable, predictable, safe. A man who said, "I choose myself," at 40 years old might sound selfish to some. But those 3 words, "I choose myself," are a declaration of spiritual freedom. In a world that rewards self-abandonment, choosing yourself isn't narcissism. It's rebellion. It's choosing to live authentically, even if it means standing alone. Because the truth is, a single man develops into who he truly is. A married man develops into who he's allowed to be. And when you look at history, it's always the first type, the one who refuses to be tamed, who leaves his mark. Another man, divorced after 26 years, said, "I've been free for 12 years now, and I love it." Think about that: 26 years of shared life, and the most powerful memory he carries is relief. Not romance. Not comfort. Relief. That's what freedom feels like after years of emotional captivity. Because modern relationships often become emotional labor camps. You're assigned a role: keep her happy. It's your job to fix her moods, reassure her insecurities, make her feel fulfilled. You become her emotional support system, her safety net, her entertainment, all while your own needs are treated as secondary. And when you finally express exhaustion, you're told you're being distant or unfeeling. This isn't love. It's emotional servitude. Nietzsche saw this kind of dynamic long before psychology gave it a name. He understood how dependent people drain the strength of independent ones by making their pain someone else's responsibility. And ironically, it's often the men inside relationships who feel the loneliest. Studies show that more married men report emotional isolation than single men. You can share a bed and still feel completely unseen. But you can't be single and have someone constantly draining your energy. When a man is single, his emotions belong to him. He feels them, processes them, learns from them. But when he's constantly managing someone else's emotions, his own get buried. He forgets what peace feels like. He forgets what silence sounds like. And then there's the modern dating world, a game designed to exhaust him. Dating apps have turned intimacy into a marketplace. Women scroll through hundreds of options with a flick of their fingers while men compete for seconds of attention. Social media fills everyone's mind with fantasy relationships that don't exist. And cultural narratives teach women they deserve everything while owing nothing. It's no wonder so many men are walking away. They're not afraid of love. They're afraid of losing themselves. A lawyer once shared a story about a client who, after his divorce, began creating something extraordinary. He stumbled into what psychologists call flow, that rare, focused state of creativity that only happens when your mind is clear and your energy is undivided. He described it as something that came out of nowhere, without intention, as if his soul had finally found room to breathe again. That's what solitude does, it gives you back your mind. Modern dating, by contrast, scatters it. You spend your days texting, reassuring, proving, explaining, and adjusting. You use your creativity to plan dates instead of building dreams. You spend emotional energy managing jealousy, social media, and constant comparison. And somewhere along the way, you lose the most precious thing a human being can have: focus. The kind of focus that builds, creates, and transforms. Nietzsche would have understood this. He would have seen that choosing solitude isn't about avoiding love, it's about refusing to live a lie. It's not about bitterness, it's about clarity. It's about realizing that true freedom isn't loneliness, it's alignment. It's waking up in silence and knowing the day ahead belongs to you. It's the peace that comes from not needing to ask permission to follow your purpose. It's the realization that you don't need to be completed by someone else, you are always whole. That's the truth most people never face. Freedom isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self. And once a man tastes that kind of peace, he rarely ever goes back. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when a man finally sees the truth of his life. It doesn't happen in chaos or argument. It happens in stillness. Maybe it's when he's sitting alone after another long day of trying to keep everyone else happy. Maybe it's when the silence in his home feels heavier than the noise ever did. That's when it hits him, he's been living his life as someone else's reflection. Every decision, every sacrifice, every small act of swallowing his own truth, done to keep a fragile peace that was never real. Nietzsche warned about this kind of existence long before our time. He called it slave morality, the mindset of those who seek worth in the eyes of others instead of finding it within themselves. It's a life built on dependency, where approval becomes the drug and love becomes a form of quiet servitude. Most men don't even realize they've fallen into it until the exhaustion turns spiritual. Until they wake up one morning and can't remember the last time they made a choice that was truly their own. The single man, on the other hand, may walk a lonelier road, but it's one carved by his own hands. He's not performing for anyone's validation. He's not adjusting his soul to fit into someone else's comfort zone. He defines his success by his own internal compass, not by society's metrics or a partner's shifting emotions. He understands something simple yet rare: solitude isn't loneliness when you're living in alignment with yourself. It's peace. But the man who lives for validation, he slowly loses himself. He becomes addicted to another's emotional weather, rising and falling with their moods. His confidence becomes conditional, given to him when he's useful, taken away when he's not. And what's worse, he calls this love. Now imagine this: a man who's spent 15 or 20 years in marriage. He's done everything right, worked hard, stayed loyal, provided. But now, his wife resents him. The warmth that once existed has turned to cold detachment. She doesn't admire him anymore, she tolerates him. They share a house, but not a life. They sleep in the same bed, but their souls haven't touched in years. Someone once said, "We all die alone, even when we're married." I'd rather die alone than have someone next to me who hates me. That single thought cracks open the illusion society has built for decades, the fear that being single means dying unloved. The truth? Most married men are already dying alone. Slowly. Quietly. Spiritually. They die each day in small doses. In the looks that say, "You're not enough anymore." In the years spent solving problems that aren't theirs to fix. In the quiet neglect that eats away at their identity. They die as providers, not partners. As machines that give, not men who live. Their purpose becomes service, not creation. Nietzsche said, "It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages." But modern relationships have moved far beyond that. They're not even about friendship anymore. They're about utility. What can you do for me? What can you provide? What problems can you solve? Once your usefulness fades, the affection does too, but the financial and emotional obligations remain, often for decades. A single man, however, dies differently. He faces death with no illusions. He may not have had a hand to hold, but he had his freedom. His choices were his. His regrets, his own. Every mistake taught him something, every victory was earned. His solitude was his temple, not his punishment. One lifelong bachelor said it perfectly, "I'm 65. Been single all my life. Some of it by choice, some by rejection. But now, I have no regrets." He knows what most never will, that solitude with purpose is infinitely richer than companionship without respect. Nietzsche's concept of master morality and slave morality explains this perfectly. Slave morality says, "I need someone else to complete me. My meaning comes from their acceptance." Master morality says, "I am whole. I create my own meaning. I build my own strength." And every reason men are choosing solitude over relationships today stems from that philosophical divide. Financial independence versus financial entrapment. Peace of mind versus emotional exhaustion. Authentic growth versus slow erasure. Creative focus versus divided energy. Internal validation versus dependence on praise. The men walking away aren't running from love, they're walking toward freedom. They're choosing self-love over self-destruction, peace over chaos, sovereignty over servitude. They've realized that true fulfillment doesn't come from being needed, but from being complete. A 41-year-old man once said, "Never live for a woman. She will disappoint or deny you eventually. Be good to yourself." It's not bitterness speaking, it's experience distilled into wisdom. Because when you build your life around someone else, you gamble your peace on something you can't control. Nietzsche knew what few dared to say out loud. Some of the greatest minds, Tesla, Newton, Beethoven, Leonardo da Vinci, chose solitude during their most creative years. They didn't avoid love, they transcended the need for it to define them. They poured their passion into creation, not compromise. And the world still benefits from their choice. You have that same choice. You can follow the script society wrote for you, find someone, settle down, spend decades negotiating your dreams into smaller, manageable pieces, or you can write your own story. You can build, create, and live in a way that answers to no one but your own higher vision. But know this, choosing yourself makes you a threat. People who gave up their freedom will resent yours. Your peace will make them uncomfortable. Your independence will expose their dependence. They'll call you selfish, immature, afraid of commitment, not because you are, but because your choice reminds them of what they lost. Let them talk. Because Nietzsche said something every free man eventually learns: the one who walks alone, walks the farthest. And in that long, quiet road of solitude, where no one's asking you to shrink, bend, or explain, you finally find something deeper than companionship. You find yourself. And when a man truly finds himself, he's never alone again. The men walking away aren't running from love, they're walking toward freedom. They're choosing self-love over self-destruction, peace over chaos, sovereignty over servitude. They've realized that true fulfillment doesn't come from being needed, but from being complete. A 41-year-old man once said, "Never live for a woman. She will disappoint or deny you eventually. Be good to yourself." It's not bitterness speaking, it's experience distilled into wisdom. Because when you build your life around someone else, you gamble your peace on something you can't control. Nietzsche knew what few dared to say out loud. some of the greatest minds, Tesla, Newton, Beethoven, Leonardo da Vinci, chose solitude during their most creative years. They didn't avoid love, they transcended the need for it to define them. They poured their passion into creation, not compromise. And the world still benefits from their choice. You have that same choice. You can follow the script society wrote for you, find someone, settle down, spend decades negotiating your dreams into smaller, manageable pieces, or you can write your own story. You can build, create, and live in a way that answers to no one but your own higher vision. But know this, choosing yourself makes you a threat. People who gave up their freedom will resent yours. Your peace will make them uncomfortable. Your independence will expose their dependence. They'll call you selfish, immature, afraid of commitment, not because you are, but because your choice reminds them of what they lost. Let them talk. Because Nietzsche said something every free man eventually learns: the one who walks alone, walks the farthest. And in that long, quiet road of solitude, where no one's asking you to shrink, bend, or explain, you finally find something deeper than companionship. You find yourself. And when a man truly finds himself, he's never alone again.